one, we have Finding Beyond. Opening up, we have 17 Nara. Closing up, we have Mr. B. Closing up, we have Anna. Educating with me is Hanum Hans Umang May. Like usual, the motion reads as Indonesia is also to adopt state-capitalism. To open this round, I call Prime Minister.
Aduh. Gimana cara pakainya ini? Oh, coba tes. Enggak, memang saya enggak pernah pakai beginian sih. Udah bisa. Oh ya, bisa. Pakai. Pelan-pelan goyang.
Guys, friendly reminder, don't please make any noises that might disturb the debaters. This is an important round for all of them, so please respect them. Thank you.
We believe that in the current globalization era, Indonesian government needs to take care their country in economical matter more by adopting the state capitalism. We believe in the status quo is very problematic. How private sector is weak to compete in this globalization era. Let's admit that our private sector is not really that good compared to our import product. Why are we still using import product nowadays? Because our private sector cannot really compete. The quality, the quantity is simply losing. That's why we are facing deficit in the first place. Second, we believe after our Asian free trade era is approaching, government need to handle this kind of matter comprehensively in our nation. Third, we believe the private sector is also private-oriented and only pursue their own interest to gain profit. They doesn't really care about their welfare of their employee. They don't really care about their welfare of their own underlings. They only care I should gain the most profit and sacrifice my own my own underlings as long as the one who owns gets the money. What is our model? We will make our national corporations such as Garuda Indonesia or any similar corporation to run in almost every aspect of our nation. For example, Indonesia government will make a national corporation that run in the manufacture or maybe textile industry. For example, we can, with the exception of PLN and etc., we will reach into almost every aspect of economy. We will make our national corporation be more comprehensive in the matter of economic. We will take over more type of trading in the sector of economy, and also we will buy shares from private companies by at least 50% of share but we will believe it will still a fair deal. So opposition cannot say the government will not let the state will let the private sector not get the fair money, because we believe when we buy a threshold of at least 50%, we will care for the private, because in the end of the day what we want to cater is the need of this private sector, but we also want to protect those who are working in this private sector better. So opposition should not bring about fair deal. They should prove why this condition will also, why this proposal will worsen the economical condition in Indonesia. That's what we need from the opposition. Also, it is not necessary to take over the private sector. So we believe actually government will only buy not around 50 or 60 or 70, but not full, because we will still let the private sector be there, but we will not take over full. We just want to make sure you run the good one. So why in my argument, I will prove that we will ensure the socio-economic will be achieved. How? First, the Ministry of the State Enterprise Company or BUMN will open job field in many kind of job. For example, we will open in the state of textile industry, manufacturing industry. So the ministry will handle this kind of economy. He will run the economy under the president. So the president will control the ministry, and the ministry will run technically regarding, and the ministry will control the one who leads this corporation. So there should be a check and balance regarding this, the head of this state enterprise that will be emerging more in the future, because the ministry will take. take care of that. And also, it opens to critics and intervention of government. So if there is something wrong, public can criticize this kind of thing. Public can make a discourse if they are not satisfied, because the government who now handles all of those things in this model, we believe. So the public can say, I'm not satisfied, and the government will be here. But when the private sector are segmented, and many are there, the public are not satisfied, but they are confused. Whom should I blame to this thing? But when the government handles the whole idea of public will instantly jump into the government. Second, intervention. I will talk about intervention. How social economy will be reached by the government intervention, because government intervene doesn't mean the government will let the private sector bad. In fact, the government intervene by policy. For example, the ministry make policy regarding minimum wage the whole nation. We can, of course, there will be evaluation in the first place, because the ministry will make policy. Doesn't mean it will be frivolous in the end of the day. So opposition cannot claim the government will make frivolous in the end of the day. Why? Because we believe there will be a long consideration, because this is a national scale policy. This is not just some policy regarding in the few province or etc., because this is a state, the state run the economy, so the president will keep that in balance too. And government can intervene if something bad happens to the private sector, because government now holds the big share in the private sector. Government can say, oh, this company is making bad policy, this company, for example, is undermining what is the president vision in the future, or the sector company is creating a bad policy regarding their worker, or making some shady business. So, for example, embezzlement won't really happen in our side, because the government will intervene that in the first place. First, government extension will be larger in our place, because government already create many type of field. Those people who are maybe don't have any job, the government will try to cater more in the future. Government can create any type of cooperation to ensure this kind of people who are not working, or and it's similar to have work. For example, government can create more perhaps online transportation system, so not only one type of private sector rule. Government can also assist in that kind of thing, and gov can extend their reach to the private. I've explained. I believe that by this model, government will able to control those private companies not to be messy. For example, you won't creating bad price, you won't manipulate the market, because government watch on you. This is what happened in our side, rather than in the opposition side, but the private sector are still running loose and without a clear control from the government. And also, we will cater the need of the potential of the country. First, to face the Industrial Revolution 4.0 and the ASEAN Free Trade Area, we need a comprehensive attempt to face this kind of globalization invasion to our country. First, private sector is not that care for our whole nation. They just want us, they just want their own private to be great, but they didn't think the whole country as a whole. So we believe in their side, they can claim private sector is fighting for their side, for our nation too, but we believe it's not enough, it's not comprehensive. In our side, it's more comprehensive, and government can create more cooperation to face this. Government will take care of many industry. They will provide job. They will not only that, they will develop the private sector more and their own sector. For example, like PLN will be developed, and the textile industry will be developed by government to face the whole trade area, or develop the human resource, because now government has the whole control. Government will try to have more better resource, and thus they will try to invite those experts and explore the potential what we have in our country better than those private. Government has a bigger resource, government has a bigger comprehensive view, and gov will recruit those people. Gov will cater out worker and private. How? They don't want those people anymore to be jobless, but instead, when we are talking about segmented private sector, they will only care if I get sufficient worker, but government, no, they will not satisfied until end of the day to cater these people who are not jobless because of skill and etc. Government can open many type of industry that the sector cannot, under all those reasons. So proud to propose.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for that speech. The open debate for the opening up. I call your seat.
Ladies and gentlemen, the problem in the status quo is that we believe that Indonesia's government isn't stable enough to maintain this state capitalism. We can prove to you because Indonesia is just a developing countries that shows to you that Indonesian government isn't stable enough to cope with this state capitalism. That reflects on the debt, a lot of debt that it has, and a lot of problem that are currently we are facing right now, such as education and stuff. That means that government isn't stable enough and isn't credible enough to be trusted to handle the economic market in the current status quo. And we have to. But why the state capitalism works in China? Because China has already been a developed country with a lot of capitals to begin with. They have a lot of capitals, and therefore their government are more stable to actually take care of those economical problem and economical situation in that area, in that country. So before I move into my arguments, I would like to throw some responses towards the OG. The first, they said that private companies are very problematic because they only cares about their own profit. But it is such a shame for them to claim that, because that is how the market works. That is how the free market cope up. People have to compete, and it is clearly explained in the economical principle that everyone has to compete, and even if there is unstable economical conditions, but it is how the market works, and in the end, based on the Adam Smith invisible hand theory, in the end, equilibrium spot will be met at the end of the day, and everything will be balanced. And the second response that I would like to throw to them is that they said that BUMN will open a lot of work fields that will cover the unemployment that exists in the status quo. But we said that what is the difference with the private companies? Does the private companies do not provide enough work field, ladies and gentlemen. So we said that it is not justified for them to say that BUMN will cover a lot of unemployment that exists in the status quo. Then the third one, they said that it is such a shame for them because they are being too idealistic, saying that the Indonesian government will solve all of the economical problems in the country. And we have explained to you that the government is not stable enough, and is not. We say that we cannot trust them. We cannot say that government is a credible institution to actually taking care of the market. So moving on to my argument, why by adopting state capitalism will instead result in a market failure, and even worse, will lead Indonesia to Great Depression, ladies and gentlemen. Because, ladies and gentlemen, please note that Indonesia has a lot of problems to solve, right? Such as our debts, our education, that requires a lot of budget. And government cannot even solve this problem. And how can we even trust them to solve our economical problem when they cannot even solve this problem? We say that there is a high chance that when they intervene with our economical condition, with the market, there will be a high chance for them to actually just mess it up again, just like the problem that hasn't been solved before. So because of that, it will most likely to result in the market value of the country. And what will happen if Indonesia faces a market value, ladies and gentlemen? The investors and the creditors from other countries will not think our country as a credible to be lend money or even to be invested in, because we have faced a market value failure. And if these creditors and these investors do not want to invest in us anymore, in the end, it will cause us to face a great depression, ladies and gentlemen. Our people will suffer. There will be a high amount of inflation that we will face at the end of the day. Therefore, it is very problematical if we adopt this state capitalism, ladies and gentlemen. No, thank you. And in our worst case, even if there will be a high chance of the private enterprises monopoly in the market from the private enterprises, we say that it is still okay, because at least our people won't go suffering. Our people at least will not suffer from the great economic depression, and still other investors from other countries will still invest in our country, even if the country will just be cope up with one enterprises and so on. At the end of the day, our people will still feel the luxury of having a good life and not suffering from the high inflation and stuff like that. So because of those reasons, we are so proud to oppose.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, in my speech, two things I'm going to prove to you on why. First, why under rest of the House there will be accountability and check and balances that would always happen under rest of the House. And secondly, on the why the under rest of the House there will be sustainability that will be beneficial for our own nation. But before that, some responses towards the OO. First, they said that there are a lot of problems in Indonesia, for example, education and more, and Indonesia's debt, etc. And they claim that there will be, by this policy, there will be more inflation and people will suffer and so on and so forth. But we say that no, we say that by this policy, this will be beneficial. Why? Our first speaker, our PM already explained to you on how actually this private sector in the status quo is really problematic and do not care about the nation and is profit oriented. And we say that by this policy, by the government taking control of it, the government will always try to maximize it to the full potential anyway. We say that by these problems about education, debts, and etc. and more inflation will be solved by this policy. And we say that these things can only solve by implementing this own policy. Anyway, we believe that these things will happen under our side of the House, because compared to their side, this will not happen, because notice that in the status quo on how the private sector is really profit oriented and do not really be contributing to the nation and so on and so forth. And we say that it will not happen under the South House, and all of this problem will always be more and more and under the South House. We concede that Indonesia is a developing country, right? But we say that China is also a developing country. But why did China succeed? Moving on into my point about sustainability. A lot of potential in Indonesia can be used by the government, but the government in Indonesia never really touched that potential. They never take care of that. But Indonesia's government never maximized that. Let's take an example of China. China used to be a poor country, developing country, and never take care of that private sector and so on and so forth. But they realized that taking control of this private sector is the only way to increase their own country by implementing this state capitalism and so on and so forth, right? So we say that Indonesia should also adapt this to ensure sustainability under the house, right? Because notice that China finally take care of this private sector and maximize it to maximum potential, and actually finally succeed to be to be better and develop better under this scenario of China itself. And we said that this sustainability will also happen under the house and will not happen on their side of the house. And moving on about our PM have already explained to you on how actually these private company are really being profit oriented and so on and so forth. And I will extend this debate by explaining more why by implementing this state capitalism will be better and there will be accountability. Moving on, accountability. Even if opposition say the government is also profit oriented, we say that it's still okay. We have our own accountability. We say that this is Indonesia is a democratic country, right? And if the government is really profit oriented as what they might claim, we say that, and the government might not maximize the maximum potential of this nation, we say that it is still okay because we will have accountability sooner or later. We say society can directly force them to use it, force the government to use it effectively. One, we can criticize government. We say that we can say our aspiration, we can criticize the government, and when they see a lot of people are against them, we say that the government will be afraid of the society because it will, and they are afraid because they will think that they might be not elected in the next election, and it will make them to change into a better and maximize the potential efficiently. And secondly, we can use opposition party to actually say and criticize the government that government is actually making such a bad policy and so on and so forth. And we say that the only way for you to be elected in the next election is by following what we say for the betterment of this country and to maximize all of the potential that the government is taking care of in this scenario. Thirdly, we can also have public discourse, right? We have people discussing about on these things and so on and so forth, and keep on criticizing the government and keep on pressuring the government and pressure them to be better. And all of these things can only be achieved by our side, right? Because it will not happen under the side because they cannot always criticize the private company. Even if they can criticize, it will not work anyway. Fourthly, there will be increasing support of NGOs and media to pressure the government to always maximize the potential and so on and so forth. So the conclusion, there will be check and balances from the government. We say that it will also be sustainable in the future because this cycle will also happen every time and so on and so forth and always repeating, and the government will always have the incentive to always be better because they are afraid of the society. They are afraid of this we using this kind of opposition party and public discourse, and there are pressure from NGOs and media and so on and so forth. Because this is the only way for us to actually maximize the potential and make the government maximize the potential and increase the economic growth of Indonesia itself, and so on and so forth. And so in conclusion, I have proven to you two things. One, about the accountability that will happen under the House because of the criticism, etc. And secondly, about the sustainability, and which it will only happen under the House because we can easily criticize the government. The government will be afraid of us, and so on and so forth. And the government will always try to do check and balances, and be better for the betterment of our nation itself. and thus there will be sustainability and rest of the house. Next, moving on into best case and worst case scenario analysis. Our best case is that there will be increasing economy and maximize potential and so on and so forth, and Indonesia will be better and better in order to solve all of the problem in Indonesia. But our worst case is that government might not be able to maximize all of these things, but we say that it's still okay, and our worst case might be the government will always be profit oriented, but we say that it's still okay because we have affirmed to you that we have our own criticism and etc. and public discourse and pressure from government, pressure from NGOs and etc. and media that will always make the government try their best to actually maximize these things. And their worst case is that they will stay with the status quo with no increasing economic growth and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Panels, Indonesia upholds the democratic value within their governance, which is to say that everyone should have the access to establish their own economic activities, which is what is demanded by the society. Meaning that state capitalism will lead to government have the dominant power to determining which economic activity should be prioritized, which sectors that should be developed. I think that opening government does not explain to us why adopting state capitalism is feasible and is going to be accepted by the society. They do not engage to our principle why Indonesia is not capable enough, why Indonesia is still problematic, why Jokowi is still bent over backwards in managing funding allocations in several sectors that is demanded by the society. This is the status quo that they are being dismissive towards. Moving on to my rebuttals. One, they say that private sectors only care about themselves and will have a potential to exploit. This is not true because private sectors, when in order for private sectors to be established, they need consent from government to be established to begin with. They went through the constraints and the process to be established because they followed a legal framework in order to be established, because even if they're going to exploit, there will still be a law enforcement to prevent the exploitations coming from these private sectors, because private sectors provides their employees in a form of insurance benefits, pensions, and so on and so forth. Even if private sectors only care about themselves, we say that it is okay because the democratic value which allow everyone to access and feel free to do their own activities. But to the very least, at least they get things done because what these private sectors have done, you should consider that they are doing it for the sake of betterment of Indonesia's country development, because these private sectors are being contributive towards the development and the economic growth of Indonesia. Second rebuttals, they say that government will create work field that is accessible and sustainable for government. We say that in order to establish a work field, it needs a huge investments to cater to all of the work field that society demands. Society demands. For example, comparing public government service and private sectors, we believe that all government and private sectors should have equal power because it is not feasible for government to take matters on their own hands. But let's engage to the scenario where government will establish a company, because when government establish company, the company, it needs government funding. Funding allocation needs to be made, and it is clear in status quo government already bent over backwards to manage this funding allocation because they have a lot of their paid and citizens' interest to be catered. Establishing a company is very procedural. It takes too much time. It needs a huge funding to provide pension, severance check, 401, healthcare, pensions. Government, it's not feasible to provide all of that because there's a lot of specific work field that demand by the society. But even if they're able to establish this, the quality won't be sustainable for the long run. For example, comparing to the BPJS service that provided by government and comparing to private hospitals that have advantage in their performance. The thing is that you need to know state capitalism can only be done by countries that upholds the communist value, because the thing is that why China succeed in adopting state capitalism, because they uphold the communist value within their governance, where government is the one that determining people's preference to begin with. And that's enough for the rebuttals. Moving on to my arguments. Stephanie already said to you that market failure will happen because government is not feasible to create a stable economy activities. But I will going to explain to you why opportunities for private sectors will be limited, and there will be no check and balance in their policy, because in an ideal world, everyone should have the opportunity to access economic activities. Everyone should have the opportunities to develop their market. There should be a check and balance between government and private sectors, because when government has the power to control, in order for state capitalism to succeed, they're going to create a policy that is going to be hard to fulfill and to be required by lots of private sectors. Why? Because they're only going to cooperate with sectors that are already privileged to begin with. Participation will only coming from developed and privileged sectors, and those who didn't make the cut, they will going to be abandoned and left undeveloped because government's invisibility to create a stable economic system. I think that society is not going to engage with state capitalism, because in the status quo society already questioned Jokowi's capability to manage the ideal economic system. I think it's better for government to not being edgy on establishing something that is out of their league, ladies and gentlemen. Even if implementing their policy will create a sustainable economy, this is only going to work in a short period of time, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why it is better for us to stick, and it is better for government to create an accessible economic activities for everyone, because we upholds the democratic interests that society demands. Thank you.
This. Mr. Speaker, what opening opposition never proved to us why by tech handle by private sector will make all people in low class and up class will be got welfare and so on. And several rebuttals going to their side of the house. They say that by this monopolized handled by government, the investor will invest anymore. But we say even if they will not invest anymore, but we say it's still okay. Why? Because it more worsen even they still stay in private sector. Why? Because the moment when monopolize take unhealthy monopolize, government will create unhealthy market, and all people even in low economic will compete because they have the same opportunity. So and also opening government only can fly if they can prove to you how the process of sustainability can be sustained if we have a problem in economic growth. So going to my first argument. First is why tech handle this monopolize will keep sustain their economic growth even if we have a problem in current condition. What we need to understand that government is the only one can handle all the economic growth. Why? Because this economic circulation is handled by government, because government have a taxes to get money. Means that even if we are still developed country, but we can still sustain our economic growth because government already considering to allocate their money. But even if you say that in current condition less likely to maintain their market because we cannot predict that this country have in low economic growth, but we say it still will okay. Why? Because we have another alternative. Notice that if government handle this capital, the cooperation with other country is more likely to happen. Why? Because we have an international market which all country have a link or relation to build the relation and cooperate in terms of in economic growth. It means that even if we are in low condition, but we still have an alternative. An alternative to cooperate with other state. But second of all, why we think that by government handle this monopolize, this will be create a health competitive and health market. Why? Because imagine that the condition of market in our country will be run conducively. Why is that so? Because the moment when government will give and allocate budget for those kind of people, in terms of people in low economic and up economic, government will give an equal chance. How it might be true? Because the moment when every sector of market will permission of government will give an equal taxes. The moment when you are in low economic people, the government will considering that you are from low economic people. They will considering their taxes, and it will make difference in up economic level. And also why we think that it's more likely good if government take this is because the access is more likely happen in our side. Why? Because the moment when you are in rural area, for example, you don't have a chance to compete with other market. The moment when you have a model, when you have models to sell your product, for example, but you are in rural area and you are far from city. That far from city, it means that you are still difficult to sell your product, for example. But by this government will make you easier to access. Why? Because government can help you by make a good infrastructure. By this infrastructure, you will easy to send or to access your product, even if you are in rural area. And also, why we think that it's more likely to happen in our side, because in their side they just can sustain their economic for their side, but it not for all the economic level of society, because what government responsibility is to make their society is happy and have a good life. It means that we should give an equal chance for all the levels of people. That's why we propose this motion.
Okay, panels. Before I'm going to my arguments, there are several responses towards the opening bench of the government and also from the closing bench of the government. So basically, they are always trying to say that the private sector are too strong in our country. That they are providing there's no balance between the power of the private sector and the public sector. So they are really not looking into the main problem right now, because they are also talking about there's no enough job from this kind of sector. But for me, there's a lot of job, but the real problem in our nation is actually come from the educations, because most of our people are still not understand what kind of globalization is we are currently undergo, what kind is industry revolution 4.0 is. So the real problem is not enough people are actually qualified to work in this era of globalization, because most of them are still lacking of education to actually get this kind of job. Also, they also stated that the government can be criticized because all the enterprises are actually on their hands. But actually, this is not exclusively happen in their sites. It's also happen in the status quo. We can see there's a lot of demo. There's a lot of people try to unrest because the policy that the government actually make is not making a good impact towards the people. Also, they said that there's also from the closing bench of the government said there will be more balance because from the taxes, from the profit from the taxes, they're actually gonna be distributed very well. But as in the status quo, we can see Indonesian profit towards the taxes and the distributed is not distributed very well. We can see the very good example in Papua. In Papua, there's not a very good infrastructure in there, because all these distributed taxes are actually concentrated in Java and concentrated in Sumatra and all other areas, not only from the Papua. So